What is up, YouTube? We are at the halfway point in the season now with this Coke Zero 400 in the books. It was won by Tony Stewart on the late restart. Only a couple laps. It wasn't a green-white checker, but it was the last 2 laps of the race. And it is his 3rd win of the season. He came from 42nd position, and that, if the chase were to start today, that ties him for the points lead with Brad Keselowski, who also has those 3 wins. Tony Stewart also jumped 4 spots in the point standings today, up to 4th position. So it was a really good day for Tony Stewart, kind of solidifying himself in the top 10 and definitely locking himself into the chase at this point. As we often see at Daytona, there was a crash coming to the checkered flag. There was a 2-car tandem on the inside, there were 2 of them, and there was the one on the outside of Tony Stewart and Kasey Kahne. Kasey Kahne gave Stewart a great push. They were able to separate Matt Kenseth and Greg Biffle, who were really the class of the field all day, and Kenseth probably had the strongest car out there, as he did at Talladega, and he was almost too fast for the 2-car tandem there, and that was the reason they lost that race. But another huge story in this race today was AJ Allmendinger was not in the race. Sam Hornish had to fly from Charlotte doing TV stuff for Speed Channel to come race the number 22 Penske Dodge after AJ Allmendinger sat out this race for failing a drug test, and he is temporarily suspended, so we'll look to see what comes of that and what NASCAR will give out as far as suspension penalty for him. I'm not going to say a whole lot about it, but hopefully it doesn't get as bad as the Jeremy Mayfield situation. But drugs in NASCAR it's a very serious thing, and it's even more so than just doing a performance-enhancing drug, if that's it, in something like baseball or football, because you're driving around these huge pieces of machinery that can be used really as weapons. You got people exposed on pit road, and if the drugs are screwing with your mind and it's not performance enhancing stuff, and it's stuff like, I'm not going to get into the whole drug thing, but it's not safe at all if a guy's doing drugs and he has to be out on the track. And the performance enhancing stuff, that's just part of the rules. So I'm sure we'll definitely see more of a suspension for AJ Allmendinger as we move forward in the race. And drivers were really complaining in this race, or not in the race, in the week, sorry. Drivers were really complaining throughout the week and in this race of overheating issues, and they really couldn't do the 2-car tandem for too long before they'd start shooting water out of the front to cool off the engine. And that was just something drivers had to leave gaps, and that's why we see a lot of the pack racing and the gaps between the cars. And when guys do 2-car tandem, we don't see it for a very long time, as we did in the Nationwide Series yesterday. We were able to see guys do that for several laps at a time, but in the 2-car tandem in this, it was 1 or 2 laps and the pusher would overheat. So they really had to time it up, and Stewart was able to take it, made a great move at the end to get in front of Matt Kenseth and block them and come away with the victory as cars were spinning off of turn 4 on that last lap. And there were multiple incidents in this race, 5 cautions in all. First one was for Sam Hornish, who ended up blowing out a tire coming off of pit lane and back onto the racing surface. Kind of unfortunate for him, ruined his day. And he ended up finishing like in the 30s. Also, when cars tried to come down pit road under green flag conditions, we often see it at super speedways. Some slowed up, others weren't paying attention when they were being waved, and they were telling them they were going to pit road, so they didn't slow down. They ended up running into the back of them. That led to a decent-sized wreck. Kurt Busch also got pretty aggressive on a move with Trevor Bayne. There was a hole there. Kurt Busch tried to take it, but Trevor and Eric Almirola on the inside kind of closed up the hole, and Kurt Busch ended up getting in a wreck there. Ended up having to take his car to the garage, getting a 35th place finish, I believe, in this race. And then, of course, there's the big one inside of 10 to go. Couldn't really do much for Denny Hamlin. He tried to cut down into an open hole, and he got a little shove and just got sideways, and that kind of ignited the whole thing. Denny Hamlin sitting out the Nationwide Series race with the bad back yesterday. That was definitely not good for his health there with the big hits he took in that wreck. But Jeff Gordon really snaked through a lot of wrecks tonight. He was involved in a couple, snaked through the big one, and he was ultimately able to finish in the 12th position. He was involved in He only got contact in 3 of the cautions, but he's listed as being involved in 4 of them, and that was just a good piece of driving from Jeff Gordon. Obviously not getting the win that he probably needed tonight if he was going to make the chase. We only have 8 races left. Can he win 2 of those races? He'll probably need 3, actually, unless he can gain those points. He can still gain points, but it's going to be very difficult. He has to be very consistent from here on out. And with this race, some guys finished pretty well that you wouldn't normally see in the top 10. Tony Stewart first, Jeff Burton in second. He was the lead of that RCR tandem, pushed by Kevin Harvick on those last couple laps. Matt Kenseth finishes third, Joey Logano fourth, after being involved in a couple wrecks tonight. Ryan Newman fifth, Brad Keselowski, after having an incident on pit road where his car was run into by spinning Ryan Newman while his guys were performing work on the car, finishes sixth. He had a torn up left rear quarter. Carl Edwards finishes seventh, gets a decent finish there. Michael Waltrip, 8th. Bobby Labonte, 9th. Those 2 guys, pretty good finishes. And then David Erdeman in the 10 car ends up finishing 10th. So that's a few good finishes for those 3 guys for sure. Casey Kane in 11th. Jeff Gordon in 12th. Some notables, Clint Bowyer ends up finishing in 29th position, and Jimmy Johnson in 36th after both being involved in wrecks. And as the points stand right now, Matt Kenseth remains in the points lead. Tony Stewart, as I said, gained 4 positions tonight and is up to 5th position in the points standings. Kevin Harvick in 6th. Denny Hamlin drops back 2 spots to 7th. Martin Truex Jr. remains in 8th. Brad Keselowski in 9th. Clint Bowyer in 10th. Drops back 3 spots. And he has a win. So if guys like Brad Keselowski or Clint Bowyer end up dropping back, granted it's 35 points back to the 11th place car and Carl Edwards, but if they end up dropping back, they'll move into that position for the wild card unless some of these guys in the 12th through 16th place positions can get another win. And those guys like Kyle Busch, Casey Kane, Joey Logano, Ryan Newman, those guys all have 1 win, and that is, their points are only separated by 20 points. So, and Kyle Busch would get that. Kyle Busch and Joey Logano would get those wild card positions at this point if the chase were to start today. But those guys that I just said, they all have 1 win, and someone else might jump in, you know, and we'll see an interesting race, that's for sure. But ultimately, toward the chase, we're halfway through the season, and on the Real Sports Talks website, me and another one of the guys, one of the bloggers on there, sports writers, whatever you want to call it, we're going to do kind of a mid-season report card thing. So if you're interested in that, go check that out. You can follow me on Twitter at Cody_TRST. Thanks for checking me out, and we'll see you next week.